I could have been a performance artist. I couldn't have. I never tried. Maybe I could have. Who knows? But we will never know, but we will learn things about how to speak dev and influence designers here on our next panel. I'm going to get you guys to introduce yourselves and what you do, because that's always the best way to get to know you. Remember, if you want to participate in the panel with your own questions, please join us on Slido. But take it away, Darcy.
Hello, I'm Darcy Sandall. I'm lead audio engineer at Sledgehammer Games, working on a little franchise called Call of Duty.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. And when I say audio engineer, I don't mean what you would typically think of an audio engineer. I'm a software engineer that specializes in building audio tech. So that's tooling, pipeline, game engine, and we do everything all in-house. So the entire sweep, if it's audio related, it's my responsibility.
Hey, I'm Dave. I'm half of a two-person indie team based in Melbourne called Powerhoof. I kind of went through the games industry early kind of 2000s era and then came out the other side to do indie stuff. Started as a programmer, but as an indie kind of doing lots of stuff. And we just released a game called The Drifter a couple of months ago. And I did writing and design and programming and sound design on that. Yeah, so a bit of everything.
Hello, my name is Joshua Meadows. I released a game earlier this year called Alcyone: The Last City, which I am primarily a writer, but also a sole developer. Amy, the organizer, asked me what my job title was, and I was like, made a game? So primarily writer, but also all of the other things, and I have a music background as well, so that was also part of the stuff that I contributed towards that.
If I can make a suggestion, I like to say my job title is funny little guy. I feel you can take that.
Funny little guy. Yeah. You have to be funny, though.
Well,
Just little guy.
There's a lot of things that can be funny. Hi, I'm Talia Russo, and I work at Playside Studios. I've been there for about 3 years. I'm a senior sound designer, and started off in film, TV, and advertising, but moved over to games because we love games, and we all want to work on games. And more recently, been working with more high-level design and across with other leads of other disciplines to look at more the vision of a project.
so this panel, we are basically going to be looking at communication between all the different segments in making a game. For Josh, it's quite easy in some ways. You're just talking to yourself. But we're going to kind of break apart how to successfully communicate between teams for a great project. I'll throw this open because it's going to be different for everyone, but can you give me a bit of a rundown of a typical pipeline for getting, let's say, sound design and music in a game? Just like sound in the game development process, what does that pipeline look like? Darcy, maybe we'll start with you for a bigger project.
So it's kind of... We are very lucky because we have the resources to have different teams. So we do dialogue in-house, we have a dialogue team, we have a lot of sound designers also almost entirely in-house, and depending on which studio is leading the Call of Duty, some will have in-house composers and others will use a third party. So trying to think of like how to get all of it down.
You're like, you've given me a ball of yarn and then said, explain it. Yeah.
So for me in particular, I don't do much of like what you would call sound design. Like our sound designers do all of our like scripting. They get all the assets in game. They kind of work more with gameplay than they do us. They kind of we're kind of the big guns that they only really need to bring in when they need actual new low-level audio features in the game. I don't think this is us at all, but I was like, I don't have a nice way of just like...
That's okay. Would we...
saying how to get it in.
Maybe we would say you work mostly with in-house teams, which probably changes the other teams that they're working more closely with. Because I can imagine potentially in a smaller team that's working with freelancers, there would be more of a written brief process that gets passed on and then comes back.
Yeah, and
does that still happen?
If it does, I'm not really involved. Our audio team, even like we send them out to locations. Like we semi-recently did like a weapon audio recording session where we sent a bunch of designers out to I think somewhere in Texas and hired out an entire gun range and got them to fire stuff, and we had recording devices set up everywhere. So we do a lot of that ourselves too.
Yeah.
But like how that I know technically how it gets into the game. It's not really what the implementation side is not really something I deal with directly.
Fair. Talia, do you want to tell us how Playside go about it?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll probably start by having a lead or audio direction scope it out at the start of the project, and then from there decide if we've got the in-house capacity to do it. We might not. And so, for example, with music composition, there might be a process by which somebody in-house is taking the time to craft or compose temp assets to get a gauge from the rest of the team whether this is going to hit the direction and the vision that we want, and refine that brief to try and get it as potent as we possibly can. And then that will get passed back to the leadership team to go and find somebody to compose the music.
Nice. I'm doing a bit of a filter down, so I'm going to go Dave.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of did sound design stuff myself. And because I've come through programming kind of background and worked on a lot of tools, like adventure game tools on top of Unity, which we're using, I kind of have built a bunch of sound tools for that. So not using Fmod or anything like that or any third-party stuff. And I just like have an ancient version of Adobe Audition, like 1.5, that I've just always used. And so I just sort of hack stuff in that. And then have a lot of tools for, I guess, based on some early Fmod stuff that I'd used back at old companies. So sort of sound cues and things like that. But yeah, so because I'm doing it myself, it's less of a brief kind of thing. It's more just sort of going through and working out what sounds I need and recording a bit of Foley or like finding them. But then for music and stuff, so I had two musicians work on this game with me. Mitchell Pasman's sitting over there. And yeah, another friend, Louis Meyer. And music briefs tended to be more like the emotion of the scene. And both Louis and Mitchell were really good at, like they'd get quite invested and play the game and play the scene. And I'd tend to sometimes record videos and sort of talk about what I thought would be good for the sort of vibe of the sectional game. But yeah, they were awesome at just taking like a little clue of this is the emotion kind of thing that I want, and then just like running with that, thinking I could sort of see the cogs turning and like chord progressions popping in the head or whatever. And yeah, and so then they'd sort of give me back just bits of music and stuff. Might be a bit of feedback loop kind of thing, but then we'd tend to just put it either over a section of gameplay in a video or just start sticking it in game. And Mitchell was really good at just jumping into my kind of script-like coding sort of stuff and adding the music stuff himself, so he could sort of test it out in game as well, which was pretty awesome. Like that was super helpful in like, I guess, having that iteration, which is quite important, be sort of happening without me having to be in the way, kind of like saying, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow before he gets to hear it in game and stuff like that. So that tend to work really well for the little team, yeah.
And Josh, how does it work amongst your team?
I also worked with a secondary composer or primary composer.
Lie to us?
Sole developer, but you have to wear lots of different hats. I mean, you're in the same boat with this. So I didn't want to, made by Joshua, written by Joshua, starring Joshua, with promotional appearances by Joshua.
The Tommy Wiseau of games.
Yeah. I wanted to avoid doing literally everything as much as I possibly could, and there were things that, like even in a small team, it's really cool to collaborate with other people and have other people put their influence into something, even if it's, my core idea at the end of the day. So I worked with a composer based in Poland, who's a really talented guy named Mihail, who did most of the music throughout, and I kind of let him, because my game is basically an interactive novel, so I wanted stuff that would be interesting so you wouldn't hate it when it was in the game, but not so obnoxious that when it was looping through the course of playing it, you would be like, cool, I'm going to turn that off. So he would, particularly early on, he would read what I had written and then kind of, okay, this evokes this feeling for me, and then send something back. And I'm like, yes, I didn't know that's what I wanted, but that's what I wanted. And he was really good at tapping into, like, I remember I did a Kickstarter campaign to do the initial funding, and I was like, I need a theme song for the game. And I'm like, that's your brief. I need a theme song, and probably
something good.
And probably I don't know, like maybe later that day he sent something back. And I'm like, this is the theme. How could it be anything else except this? So he was really, really good at kind of tapping into like aspects of the creative music end of it that I didn't really realize I wanted until it was presented to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's it, obviously.
Do you think that your brief was, I guess, quite light on detail because you wanted the composer to do their own thing with it? Or did you feel like there was a barrier for you for figuring out the right language to use? Or was it literally, I don't have time for this. If someone else could do it, it'd be great.
A little bit of all of that, especially early on when we were kind of figuring out how to work together. I would be like, "Hey, can you do me a particular? This is the theme that I want music for." He's like, "Cool, write it, and then I'll do it." I'm like, I kind of need it happening parallel so that when I'm done writing it, I'll have the music. And he's like, "Nope, write it, and then I'll read it, and then I'll make something." But later on, after we'd been working on things together, it would be less of that and more like, I don't know, I'd come across a piece of music in another game that I really liked, and I'm like, be heavily inspired by this. Like the twinkly piano in the ghost forest area in Breath of the Wild, that obnoxious level. I don't know how many times I got sent back to that, but it had this really plinky kind of ghostly piano, and I'm like, I really like the atmosphere of this. What do you think about that? And then he would give me back an interpretation. But it was part of it was like, I want your voice on this, and if I'm just telling you, compose it in C#, the key, not the programming language, then I'm exerting more creative control over this than I really want to be doing, and I may as well just make the music myself, which, wearing many hats, I did end up contributing music to the game that I didn't want to be doing.
Using reference tracks, seems like a pretty obvious and easy way to convey things that you want to get back from your composers. Do you use reference tracks for like sound effects too? Is that a thing? I'm seeing nodding.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, temping out with sound effects is always great. But particularly I'm wearing the Dumbways tee today. Like on the Dumbways brand, we know what our branding is, and so maybe we'll grab some sounds that we've used before to see if that is comparable in this scenario. And it just like fills in that gap immediately. You know what's missing. So,
but sonically, do you ever send I don't know, a thud sound and say, I really like the weight of this thud. Can we get more weighty thuds?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've started with one person once saying, I want this, it was a wood hitting, like chopping a tree down sound. And the notes were like, it's just missing the juice. And we were like, okay. Yeah. So we had to like find and refine what that distills down to, like what is the juice of that sound. So yeah, a lot of references are great.
Well, this is perfect because it's phrases like those that I think are some of the biggest hurdles when having these types of discussions and working collaboratively and getting what you need from each other, not just in sound, but I think particularly in sound, because of the way we all seem to perceive the essence of a sound differently. So can you run me through how you figured out what juice meant? And then I'm also, after that, going to open it to the rest of the panel to see if you have anything to share about how you drill down to what people actually mean when they use these feelings words, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I guess so there's a few things that we might try. Sometimes we'll do just a little bit of like, we call it, I don't know, mirroring. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's just something that we'll kind of throw around now because we've done it enough of the times. We're like, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. Can you mirror it to me? Like, show me what you're kind of after. That's probably the simplest, most potent way, is just like grabbing a reference and being like, kind of like this. And then they're like, no, like this. And you're like, all right, great, yeah. Or if it is just in conversation, then it's trying to extrapolate, like, okay, like when you're hitting that, what are you feeling and what are you not feeling? What is it, is it the length, is it too short, too long? If this was bigger, like how big of a moment is this? How important is this to the game? Any of those questions can sort of like tease out like where maybe the differing expectations are.
Yeah, I can go. I guess, like I think with music, reference stuff can be kind of hard because if you're giving a reference track, there's so many elements of a track that you could take as like, this is the thing they want. So, it might be like just the energy of it, or it might be the instrumentation. I don't know. There's untold amounts of things it can be. And so I always found it hard searching for reference tracks, like music tracks, to sort of find like, oh, this is the kind of thing I want, just because there'd be like 5 different tracks and each one has one element of something that I think is cool that I'd like, but trying to express like the thing to take from each one was really hard. So I think I eventually, for a couple of previous games as well, ended up just distilling it down to one track and like, this one's kind of got pretty much the elements I want. So for the Drifter, it was John Carpenter was kind of a big influence. But like just saying John Carpenter as the influence is like just way too broad because there's heaps of stuff.
Noted musician John Carpenter.
Yeah. So it was really like just this main theme from Assault on Precinct 13 that became like, that's the one. If it's got that kind of essence in it, it's gonna kind of feel right. And then as we went on, that developed, and there was sort of sci-fi notes that came in with a bit of like Blade Runner Evangelist stuff, or like stuff from LucasArts game The Dig, which had these really interesting pads and synth strings and stuff. But yeah, like it felt like I really had to try and find one thing that didn't do anything that was completely wrong. I think that was the main thing, which was really hard because the previous game worked with 5 different musicians or 6 different musicians, each doing a track. So it was kind of a bit like an R&B kind of or hip hop kind of record sort of vibe. And that was, that was difficult. And I just chose like the message is like, that's the kind of thing to center around, I guess, rather than like lots and lots of different hip hop tracks that I wanted to sort of evoke. But yeah, another thing that having that sort of, I guess, trying to establish a shared language of like words you can use. Like I used the word pad before, like as like a kind of, I don't know, low attack, like slow attack kind of sound that comes and goes or something. But that's not a word I knew really before sort of talking to musicians more. But sometimes I'd want to express that I wanted it sort of to have this slow swelling kind of feel without knowing what it is. Or there'd be like an instrument that sounds a bit weird in one of the tracks. I'm like, I'm not sure about that very specific thing. It just seems to stand out to me. But it can be really hard to, without the shared language, know how to say not that part of it. You're like, not that bit that kind of goes or something.
Yeah.
And that came through in like voice directing as well a lot, because like I might say, a bit more staccato or something, because like for this bit would be awesome. Try something a bit more staccato. And some voice actors just wouldn't understand what that meant, or like, which is fair enough because it's kind of just I'm making up weird words and like in my head I think that's what it should mean, but it's a challenge. And so you kind of I felt like I had to sort of establish a bit of rapport and work out what the shared language is with each person, and then and a lot of the time just be like very open with if I'm not making sense, let me know, because
That's the difficult thing, right? As well, when you're working with different teams, everyone has their own language, and you say staccato. I think a lot of people in this room would know what that means, but then sometimes you need to step back and go, "Hey, you know what? Not everyone has had the same life experience that I have, and sometimes words are just jargon." Is this something that you run into a lot? You had a sly little smile earlier.
I didn't know what that was. I'm on the other end. So the designers if the designers want to do something that they can't currently do with the tech they have, they kind of have to come to me, and they have to explain it to the way a technical engineer would know how to do it, because I know how to make a sound work. I don't know how to make a sound good. So it'll sometimes even just be like YouTube videos of like mathematical and physics breakdowns of like how you get the sound, how the actual this sound would work in real life, and we have to like translate to the game and things like that.
That's so wacky. That's so wacky.
Yeah. So like,
didn't you study YouTube videos about sine waves?
Yeah. But yeah, like I'm literally, they would be like, I want it to sound like this. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. And I also don't know. And once I know what you mean, I have to figure out how to like put that into the engine.
I have never once in my life considered like sound or music from a pure physics perspective.
Yeah. I had a funny thing, this is back on Cold War, where I was working on the music system, and we like obviously sync tracks ourselves, and I got a bug, and the audio designer was like, this music syncing was off, and I was like, I can't hear it. I looked at the wave files, it was off by like 0.3 of a millisecond, and I was like, how did you hear that? Like, I can see in the code like exactly it's like 0.325 milliseconds, but like how can you hear that it's off by that much?
And they're like, vibes.
Basically, yeah.
That's I think a very difficult kind of meshing, because it really is the mathematical side of things versus the vibes side of things. But when you distill it down, unfortunately, music is maths. I say unfortunately because I'm not much of a maths head. I'm a vibes person. So it's really interesting to get to see and hear both perspectives. Is there anything that you find the audio people do or want that they do in flagrant disregard for what is possible or easy from a software perspective?
The amount of sounds they want to put in the game and the amount of high quality they want, it's just like eventually we need to ship on a PS4. Like eventually we have to strip that stuff out, and like we support how many languages? Each is like every line, especially if you're shipping on like EU region, that's like 10 languages, and you think of the millions of lines of dialogue we have, that's, I don't know, maybe even billions of lines of dialogue we somehow have to fit on a build and then ship out to the world. We're like, I know that sounds great, but also there are like actual limitations to the technology we're using, and it's our job to make it run.
Yeah. Which I'm going to say, how do you deal with conflict?
Just in general, or?
Well, in a situation like that, when you're being asked to do something that maybe there's, competing needs or desires, where obviously the audio people want the audio to be the best that it possibly can be, and you are sitting there like the big meanie saying no.
They're generally pretty good at knowing the reality of what it is like to ship a game with so many assets. Because we do everything ourselves, we have complete control, so we can like maybe compromise here to get a bit more here, or conflict, it's never really been a problem, because we all it's Call of Duty. We do it every year. We know what it takes to get that.
Take them out to a gun range.
Yeah,
record some sound effects.
We let them fly all around the world and go on little recording trips to make them happy. That's a joke. They actually do very good work when they do that. But yeah,
that's like pizza party.
Yeah, more fun.
I'm just curious. Do you have a conflict with because the game is very physics based? And yeah, do you have conflicts where people are like, oh, we need to be able to hear this thing, but then it doesn't really work with the physics of the game?
Kind of. Footsteps are a really big thing, because we are a competitive game, and there's very much be very careful with the footsteps, because if you're a competitive COD player, you have an expectation of what this is going to sound like to know when there's someone sneaking up behind you and things like that. So there is there's things
Well,
like that.
fortunately, when you change that, the Call of Duty community is famously very, very supportive and takes change really, really well, I hear.
No comment. I'm glad that Twitter is less of a thing anymore. I don't have to look at my DMs.
Moving on. Through what channels do indie devs and larger AAA companies go through to find a composer or call for demos?
Well, I usually don't respond to like the 5 emails I get every day for from composers and voice actors and things. Unfortunately,
Is that why you haven't been returning the calls?
I get the unsolicited, hey, do you want us to do PR for you? No, I don't. I would love random composers reaching out to me.
I find it's usually I get the most emails for composers and sound designers when I've just released like a demo or a video that's got a score and sound design. It's like, well, clearly I don't.
I worked the composer that I have worked with for Alcyone is based in Poland, and that actually was recommended to me because someone else whose game I really enjoyed, I reached out to them and was like, I really like the music in this game. Like, oh, awesome person in Poland, I'll put you in touch. And initially, he got back to me and was like, okay, yeah, I charge this much. I'm like, I can't afford that. Thank you very much. But then the lead time on the game ended up being long enough, and what I was asking for, he was like, I can probably do this more casually than I would have like another project that I was working on, so I can probably come down on the rate a lot. But charge what you feel you're worth is my recommendation there. And then all you can do is in response is, yeah, cool, I appreciate that. I can't afford that.
I think that's another great tip, which is not really in the scope of this panel, but there's always other things that you can talk about in discussions for something to try and make a project work if monetarily you can't quite hit that mark. So that's a good point. Lead times. If you can take pressure off people, often it can mean they can charge a bit less. Talia, do you have anything to say about the... I forget what my question was now.
Finding composers.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, in Playside, we don't get a ridiculous amount of emails, so I should, if you'd like to send us an
I'll
email.
forward them on.
Yeah, contact us. Sometimes, yeah, we'll go directly to a composer who's we've been in contact before, but also we might go to an agency, and shout out to the Otherworld agency who are showcasing at High Score.
It must be nice to have money.
Okay, Josh.
I guess I can talk about tips, I guess, or maybe for working with the indies and stuff, because most of the time it is like people that we know or have talked to or friends have worked with, other dev friends, I mean. So it is pretty hard to like just penetrate into like working with some indies sometimes because they're getting a lot of people asking and they don't know who to choose. So they tend to just go with someone they know or they've met or someone, a friend of a friend. But I think one thing you can do if you're trying to do that kind of work is like show up to Global Game Jam and random other game jams and be like, hey, I want to do some music. Who wants to collab, because then you're establishing like that little like, oh, there was that guy that worked with us on that like game jam. He was pretty cool. Let's see if he's busy, that kind of thing, I think, is a nice little way to go in that indie route kind of thing, yeah.
I was actually literally talking about this morning. There is something to be said for just simply asking that I think, because I had Rihanna Pratchett contribute some of the writing for Alcyone, and people were like, oh, how'd you get Rihanna Pratchett? I'm like, I emailed. And like I legitimately, I'm not exaggerating or lying, I was for months in talks with Lizzo's people about contributing a piece of music for Alcyone as well, and people like they were taking me seriously. I was speaking with Lizzo's record label, and they're like, how did you manage to do that? I emailed. I just reached out and like, hey, Lizzo, are you interested in doing anything for video games?
Yeah.
And then it was also, I cannot afford Lizzo, it turns out.
I like how you were like, can't afford this composer in Poland, but try my shot with Lizzo.
Look, if it's between Lizzo, and I'll find the budget if
You're
I
like,
can.
you can have as long lead time as you want, babe. I know it's probably not quite part of your remit, but do you have a sense of how AAA goes about? Is it just like in-house job hiring, job ads?
I have no idea.
Fair enough.
I go to a meeting one day and they're like, "This is our composer." I'm like, "Cool." But yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, because Call of Duty is about 9 studios, some of the studios do have composers in-house to do the score. Like I think Treyarch is one of them, and then there's some of the others who get outside composers. So don't think it's common, but it is, some studios do actually have composers in-house.
Yeah, I think there also seems to be a bit of a split with like indie and AAA as well, where indie, it is very like based on community. It's based on you showing up for each other, for other people's games, contributing here and there, whereas AAA is often either applying for a job and getting a job, or being an established composer and being asked to come on board, I would say, yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, I don't know off the top of my head, but there are like unions, I know, for the voice actors. I'm not sure if it's the same for composers, but we are held to those quite strictly.
What makes a composer great to work with outside of the quality of their music? What's a good balance between hitting the brief versus your own ideas that you might have?
I think communication's like super important. Being able to have that back and forth, and I guess being very like chatty, I guess, as much as possible as you're developing a piece, because sometimes it can take a while, but it's nice not to just have complete silence and then here's the finished piece. I think it's like, what do you think about this little bit? I'm sort of messing around with stuff, and it probably depends who you're working with.
I like radio silence and then here's the finished thing, particularly for the music, because if I'm having to iterate on their iterations, then I start to be like
your music brain turns
back,
on.
like, oh, well, can we get that? And then it starts nitpicking.
Sure, yeah.
And I don't know, as a creative, I hate it when I'm doing a brief for someone and they're suddenly nitpicking everything that. I mean, I'm sure everyone enjoys that, and
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
I like it when it's just like, here's the thing, and then I can go, oh, okay, now I can think about this, and this is what I like, this is what I don't like, and then get a thing.
Yeah, do you like having some early kind of like direction, like here's the sort of thing I'm thinking, for you to go, oh, and if they're like, oh, so what do you think about this kind of direction for this piece?
So this is a unique situation for me making my own thing, because when I've worked in other games in other capacities as a writer, you do usually have to be like, here's a plot outline, here's what I'm doing. So from the creation end of that, I usually have to provide a lot more stuff up front, which is not generally my preferred process, because I'm kind of like, I'll figure it out as I go along. And every person who's paying you money loves to hear you'll figure it out as you go along. But then on the other side of it, I definitely liked it more. Why don't you just take it? And that probably leads to a situation, fortunately it didn't, but had it where he'd worked on a piece of music that I was like, this is completely wrong. But he did give me some things that I was like, I don't think that I like it in this particular context, but I can definitely use this somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think you make a great point as well that, everyone is going to work differently and have different preferences on how things are delivered to them, and how collaborative the process is. Do you find that it is beneficial to have that conversation up front, or is it something that you just need to develop a sense for and I guess kind of guess until you get told otherwise?
I mean, everyone's emotionally intelligent and works together very well, and there's no conflicts whatsoever.
Love to hear it.
I don't know. Like when someone tells me my working style is XYZ, I'm like, we'll see. Because I've heard people who are like, I can multitask.
I can change her.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I've heard from people who are like, I can multitask and so on, and then I'm like, interesting, because you said you could do that, and you seem to not be able to do that. So I think it's kind of the situation where you just have to figure it out through the working relationship, and then obviously you would hope that people are communicative and aren't and it's hard in a creative atmosphere as well, because it's work, but it's also important. And unlike a lot of other industries, not to disparage any of them, but there you put a lot of yourself in creativity, so it's hard to divorce your ego from it when someone's like, no, I hate that, like I suck. Okay, cool, I suck as a creative, I'll quit, thank you.
I think it's so true. I think particularly for music, and also I think for sound design, there is very much a perspective of it being a passion-led thing, very personal, like you said. Do you have the same feeling for the work that you do, or are you like, it's physics, babe? The numbers don't lie.
I think we also have the passion, but we also have a bit more freedom, I think, because when it comes to engineering, the creatives don't care how you do it as long as it works. So under the hood, you can do whatever you want. You can plan it whatever way, but as long as the end of the day, like the game engine is the game engine, as long as it makes a game, we have complete creative freedom over how we do that. So yeah, we do get that creativity, and I actually think more because what we do isn't user facing.
Yeah, I kind of love that you get to play and like do these things that you're really proud of, and no one's gonna come along really and be like, I don't like it.
Audit your code.
Yeah.
I mean, other engineers do that, but like I don't have a creative director and it's like, your code's terrible, and I was like, cool, explain it to me.
In having all of these conversations, I think it's always very difficult to strike the balance between accommodating people, being polite, sharing what your needs, hearing their needs. And something that we've kind of touched on a few times throughout the weekend as well is the prevalence of neurodivergence within the games industry. Many, not all, but I would say probably above average people working or near the industry are neurodivergent in some way. And as we all probably know, that also can change communication styles. Do you find that it's a consideration for you in how you're working with, be it freelancers or co-workers, different teams, or is it just everyone I work with is neurodivergent anyway, so we're all just on the same page?
As a formerly gifted student myself,
are you no longer a student or no longer gifted?
I mean, it's kind of the same situation as someone telling me their working style. It's like I have to see how we interface collaboratively one way or another. So if someone tells me they're boringly neurotypical or otherwise, it doesn't necessarily make
no shade to neurotypical people.
Yes, they're people too. It doesn't necessarily change anything about the working dynamic, because that, I have to figure it out as we're actually working together. So it doesn't particularly, maybe it's something to keep in mind how I communicate myself with someone versus taking, bluntness to heart personally versus, oh, that's just their preferred way of speaking.
Mm. In a leadership role, do you find that that's an important thing for you? And also, how do you go about... Actually, no, I'll ask that question later. I want to stay on this topic a little bit longer. Yes?
Yeah, for sure. So I think similarly, it's just you start the working relationship and you start to piece together the best way that you two interface. So I think it's always making sure that it's a case-by-case basis, like you're not treating that I'm not treating anybody in a way that I've decided is just the way. It's just like, starting that conversation. And
I read a book on management and it said this is how you have to handle it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's just taking every opportunity to better understand somebody as well, being open to that, and then seeing how things unfold, and making sure that the comms are open enough that if we need to unpack something, that there's that opportunity. Yeah.
I guess it's not even like related to neurodiversity. Everyone is different. And you've just, I'm lucky that most of the people I work with are full-time employees, so we get to build relationships over time, but you figure out how someone likes to work, how people like to communicate. I also work at a studio that's got locations at 4 different places over the world. So there's all the different cultural cues that you have to figure out and navigate. Australians are quite blunt compared to Americans. And I've noticed that.
Really? I thought Americans would be more blunt.
No, they are. How do I say this nicely?
I'm right here.
They are. They are very polite to the point where it's almost an annoyance or a hindrance.
Right.
So if you come up and be like, "I need this," they can take it quite harshly. You're like, "Hi, how are you? Can you do this?"
Oh.
So you know, it's like obviously we've got Brits, Canadians, we've got people in Europe. So it's also you just have to. It's something you learn over time, and
I mean, in the U.S., they're all at-will hires, so it's probably
yeah.
we don't have unions in the United States. They haven't invented those yet.
They actually are the only ones in the company with unions. They are learning.
Well, I mean, that's a good point, touching on cross-cultural. Do you find that you need to actively go and learn about these things in order to be effective in your roles? Or is it something that you take a backseat and say, look, yeah, we're all human and I'm just going to try and figure out how to be nice? But nice can look different to different people, right?
You don't have to, but it makes your life so much easier if you do.
Stay curious. Yeah, it's just ask more questions because you just probably don't understand what's going on. And
I love that. That's so sweet. I love Talia. She's very lovely. But also, like, I feel like that's one of the sweetest answers that you could have given. And I think that it is a really important and useful reminder for just the way that we move in the world in general, because you would be shocked at how it changes your interactions when you ask a question from curiosity. And yeah, like if you imagine, you're given a piece of work and you hate it, your instinct might be, why did you do it like this? This is terrible. How dare you? But if you can take that step, that breath, and go, actually, maybe I will bring genuine curiosity and be like, oh, like, can you explain it to me? Why did you do it like this? What do you like about it? What were your aims? That kind of thing can help you see the value and also shift it towards being more what you want from a much kinder and more agreeable perspective.
I've been here for almost 20 years to talk about the cultural connotations of interacting differently. Nearly 20 years, and an Australian says mate to me, and I'm like, are we having a fight?
We are, actually.
I can't find it anything except immediately passive aggressive to me for some reason.
Okay, can we talk about the American the thank you What is that about?
Yeah, I mean, it's those things that you take for granted. Like, I don't know, my feedback as an American in Australia has always been that I'm the blunt one, and I need to soften it down because Australians don't take the directness as nicely. So I don't know, it's interesting. I mean, we're all...
It's their confidence, I think. That's
yeah.
Maybe it's more being like game developers and stuff, but when I encounter someone who's confident, it freaks me out.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
Darcy, you had something you wanted to add to that? No? What makes a... no, wait, it was not that one. We went through that one. It was, do you see composers joining places like Playside in-house like they do in Japan, composing on salary rather than commission? And if not, why not?
do I see it happening? I don't see why not. I think it's one of those things where we are a company that manage multiple projects constantly, where we need to stay true to that particular project. So if there's an opportunity for somebody to be broad across, we might have, at one point we had like Legally Blonde ideas, and then we might have Age of Darkness, and it's like to compose for those two, it's not impossible. You could have that range and breadth and be amazing at both, but that is kind of something that will be consistent at Playside, I think. Always is a sense of we've got the serious stuff going on, the blood, gore and guts, and then we might also have the Dumb Ways brand, which is still blood, gore and guts, just a different kind of it. Yeah,
but like fun.
Yeah. So it's not unheard of, but it would be the right person, the right time.
I think that does sound like quite a difficult role to fill, and I think, it does seem rare in general for there to be space for an in-house composer.
Yeah, I think the harsh reality is not a lot of studios have the money and the work to do it, and the industry is not in the brightest place right now.
But on the plus side, that means diversity of projects that you can work on and the ability to build your profile more quickly instead of being tied to single projects or studios.
Well, yeah, especially the bigger ones that lock you in and you're not allowed to work on other projects outside of that.
Josh, shut up. What internal documents, for example, game design and tech design documents, art bibles, beat sheets, personas from other departments reach the audio team? Are they useful?
Don't look at our wiki.
No, probably is the answer. I mean, I think the design documents depends on the size of the company and the structure. But the various sizes I worked from about 50 people down to 2. They tend to be written and then out of date instantly.
Yeah, promptly never looked at again, and
every now and then a designer will spend a week updating it and tell everyone to read it, and no one will, and then it'll be out of date again the next week. So
I didn't have to do a brief for the music, but I did because I as I mentioned, I had other writers, and these were people who worked on higher profile things than my dinky old game, so they were used to being given a design document, a world Bible kind of thing, and they're like, "Cool, can you send that to me?" And like, I would have to make that myself then.
There's definitely a lot of writing documents for a very specific purpose, and that's like grabbing stuff from different places. Yeah.
And
As a designer, I think writing those documents is a useful way of working out how you're making the game and what the design is. But then after you've done that and worked it out, they're not referred to back as much, or not in a useful way. I
mean, I think there are people who definitely value that, and that's a very important way for them to work. I personally, I hate making them. It's the worst experience
it's like
ever.
A spreadsheet, isn't
it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and creatively as well. Once I start to, I don't know if you're the same. Once I start to like lock that in and codify it, now I'm kind of making decisions on things where I would like the flexibility further along to, like if I have written the plot of whatever in this outline, now I feel like I'm stuck to that. Whereas down the track, I may change my mind. And if I had never told anyone that this is the plot, then I could have done that.
You're the inversion of J.R.R. Tolkien? Because he's just all lore. That's all I want to do.
But he described a door with like pages and pages of complexity.
I kind of get the other end. So I'm our studio's lead audio engineer, so I have regular catch-ups with the audio designers, and they'll come to me and be like, I want to do this, or like, we used to do this way a few games ago, can we do that? And I literally have to do a deep dive in our tech, being like, how does this still work? And then come back to them and be like, okay, this is a report of how it works now, because documentation is hard and it's obviously not up to date. But yeah, that's a lot of my job.
Yeah, we definitely don't think that there's like a document that's always 100% up to date, but it's like a starting point generally, and then we'll have a meeting, and then stand-ups and any meetings, if anyone feels like misaligned, it's just brought up, I thought I understood this from this document and that might be out of date, and we'll clarify it there. But similarly, like if we're working with engineers, we need to build out a system, it's like a Miro board to describe like kind of what we're after, like could the sound do this thing? And then
Vibes.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do you find that there are a lot of miscommunications that happen, and does it slow down the development process, having to go back to the drawing board, reiterate, and find that shared understanding? Or does it, in general, it flows all right?
we kind of embrace the miscommunications sometimes. I mean, not miscommunications, but like if people have a different perspective on something that was presented, it's seen as like really interesting. It's like, okay, so if we're describing it like that, or the feature is being described like that, and it can be interpreted in those ways, is there like a benefit in that interpretation or a benefit in that interpretation that like most of us hadn't considered? So those moments are kind of like grabbed and taken for what we can glean from them. Yeah.
That's also putting an immense amount of trust in the team that you're working with, and trusting that what they're bringing you is good and has value, even if it's not what you originally thought of. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like we approach it like I'm certainly not the best sound designer in the world. So if I'm going to present an idea to the team to execute on, I'm going to leave it open so that the greatest sound designer that I have on my team is just going to reflect that back to me in a way that I hadn't considered. Otherwise, yeah, I might as well be going off and making it myself.
You started to bring the mic to you.
Sorry.
You're like, no, nothing, no anymore. For small indie teams and solo devs, how do you strike a balance between learning new aspects of game development versus finding external help?
So I decided to do the sound design myself because I really wanted to, and Mitch really wanted to do it as well. So we had to I was like, no, I'm doing it, even though I've got way too much to do, and he would have loved to do it. But I think for me that was partly because it's something I always enjoy doing in game design. In a game jam and smaller projects, but I never. But it's in game jams and stuff. I've got like an afternoon to do all the sounds and stuff, and it's like, I want to be able to actually take the time to do it nicely, and I was excited about doing that. And so I kind of was like, no, I've made the decision. I'm going to do it myself. And then I forgot the rest of the question. Sorry.
It was how do you strike a balance, and it's sounding like you.
Right. Yeah. So that was, I guess, because it's my kind of project, and I was able to, I sort of had the budget, and it had already taken 5 years. It's like, it's going to take another year anyway, so I'll just do it myself.
That's called sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was partly like, I've done all the annoying, boring business work stuff. I want to do the fun stuff too with that project. So that was really just me doing it because I wanted to.
Well, that almost sounds like striking the balance between kind of doing something that keeps you invested and interested, and allowing that to take time because that is important, rather than letting the project turn into something that you hate. Yeah,
well, that's it. I think like for solo projects, like we're doing it because this is the project we want to be making, and obviously it's not all like that the whole way through. It gets like really hard, and you just got to plow through it. But yeah, I try to make an effort to not give all the fun jobs to everyone else.
I mean, in my case, it was a trade-off between budget and like there's definitely things that I'm not a great programmer. I know enough to kind of convey to a better programmer what I want, or I think there's a bug here. I think I've isolated the bug to this code that is indecipherable to me. Fix it. So it was a trade-off between the things that I felt I was good at and what I wanted to create on the project versus where I wanted other people, either because I thought they would do a better job or because I wanted their creativity in it. But then I still ended up, even though I had said to myself at the beginning, I have a composer, he will do the music, and I still ended up contributing like 6 different tracks to the soundtrack because I couldn't stop meddling.
But I think there's also something to be said of this idea that we sometimes have of like, I want to trust the people that I'm working with, that sometimes does cause us to hold back from pointing out when something's wrong. So how do you strike that balance? How do you know when something that you see actually needs changing, and differentiate that from something that could be changed, but maybe it's fine?
I've definitely looked at stuff past Joshua had done and gone, what was in your head then? But I mean, again, smaller teams, I think you're a lot closer to the people that you're working with than perhaps you might be where there's a bigger degree of separation. So I think, at least in my case, I like these people. I want them to enjoy working on the thing that I've asked them to contribute to, so I don't want to piss them off.
Yeah, for me, I think on the music side, like I knew what I liked and what I didn't like, but the only music I'd really done is very like garage bandy stuff, and so I'd never done anything electronic, and so I just didn't have that skill set. And so it was probably a lot easier for me to just be very, like excited when I hear a track. But then I would also be like, there were certain things that, like, I wanted the soundtrack to have to sort of stand out a lot more than I think a experienced professional musician who's scoring a game will tend to want to do, I think, sometimes, where they're like, I want it to just sound, I don't want people to notice the soundtrack. I want it to be in the background. And I was like, no, I want it to like come in way too loud. And you're like, whoa. So that was kind of something that I guess I probably reiterated a bunch of times. It was like, oh, just do it more. Like, and it's like, oh, I don't know, it sort of stands out a bit weird. Yeah, no, make it stand out heaps more. And like everyone will go, whoa, that was a weird like instrument there.
Yeah, I mean, doing mine, I wanted the music to not be just background noise, but I remember the first time I publicly showed it, and this was a very early prototype, and someone was like, really enjoyed it. Is there a way that, like, can you add a menu item to turn the music off? And I was like, why would you want to do that? That's the wrong choice here.
We have a regular fight where they're like, oh, it'd be so much faster if we built the game without audio, and we're like, no, over our dead bodies.
Why would they ever say that? We're going to wrap up now with this last question of what do you think is the best way to develop your lexicon of language, of words, of understanding, to be able to communicate effectively, in these multidisciplinary teams or people?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think it's something that's just slowly develops between two people, and it's different every time because you have to slowly work out what that shared language is, and then teach each other what things mean, and
but
be
is there
very
a universal language?
Well, there is, but you have to go to uni for like 5 years to learn it.
So in a past life, I was in Indy for 3 years, and I think what helped a lot when I was in Indy is I had to jump in other disciplines, and that's kind of helped because when I speak to people from other disciplines, I don't know enough. I don't know a lot, but I know enough to like have a general idea of what they do.
Mm.
Yeah, I was going to say doing, even if it's, because through the course of making this game, I've done everything from the writing to programming, which I never expected to do. I've done the art, which I never expected to do. And I think it's, be, as you said earlier, be curious. And I think that also includes trying things that you thought you might not be good at or might not have an interest in, and work on lots of various things, even if it's just at a hobbyist level. There's YouTube videos for everything. You can build a car from YouTube videos now.
But would you drive it?
Good point. Short of actually doing the other disciplines, take them out for coffee, have a chat, and ask about like their concerns and what's their day-to-day looks like. Sit with them for as much time as you possibly can, because the things that you'll pick up aren't what you expect to pick up. It's not that cut and dry, and what might be concerning them about a situation might be the complete opposite of what your concerns are, and suddenly you get a better idea of like that next meeting, how we're going to find a solution, or if you've actually got a solution for them, which I think a lot of the time we don't expect, but we do. We have, I've definitely mentioned things to the animation team, and then immediately they're like, oh no, but we can just do it this way. It's like, what? We can do that? Like, that's possible?
Yeah. And also when you're really stressed, it's hard to find alternate solutions. So having the ability to kind of outsource as well is going to help on that regard. And I think something you touched on earlier, I want to come back to, of drilling down to those details. I think having conversations, not that we ever have the time to do these kinds of, masterclasses or retrospectives, but having a conversation where you can sit with someone and play something and hear what their word to describe it is, and then break it down into, okay, if it was shorter, how would you feel about it? If it had reverb, how would you feel about it? All these types of things can help build that language, at least within a team, and build your understanding to be able to communicate more clearly later. Or you could just learn physics. Just learn all the physics of it. Thank you so much to my panel. We will now be taking an hour